The planned Type 003 aircraft carrier Fujian was commissioned in June 2022 and is, by any honest assessment, the most significant surface warship the People's Republic of China has ever built. She is 316 meters long. She displaces approximately 80,000 tons at full load. She is equipped with an electromagnetic aircraft launch system, EMALS, that makes her the only carrier in the world besides USS Gerald R. Ford, USS John F. Kennedy, and USS Enterprise to use this technology rather than steam catapults. The EMALS comparison to the Ford class is intentional and acknowledged by the plan. The Fujian's designers studied the Ford class with the specific attention of engineers who understood that the United States had solved problems they needed to solve and who solved them using methods that will be familiar to anyone who has studied how the plan's aerospace and naval programs have developed over the past 3 decades. Carefully, deliberately, and with the complete picture of what they were replicating available to them in ways that were not available to the programs whose work they were replicating. The Fujian is real. The Fujian is capable. The Fujian is not mocked in this script. What is noted is that the Fujian is newer than USS Gerald R. Ford and carries approximately half the aircraft. Her air wing is smaller, her combat systems are less proven, and her carrier strike group operations, the specific art of operating a multi-ship formation at sea, coordinating air operations with surface and subsurface elements, sustaining flight operations through a deployment, represent a capability that the United States Navy has been developing and refining since 1927. The planned carrier program is in its 2nd decade. The institutional knowledge gap is real. The hardware gap is closing. The operational experience gap remains, and operational experience is the one category that cannot be reverse engineered from published specifications. USS Ronald Reagan, CVN-76, a Nimitz-class carrier commissioned in 2003, and currently the U.S. Navy's forward-deployed carrier, based at Yokosuka, Japan, is operating in the Western Pacific, approximately 340 nautical miles east of the Taiwan Strait. She is not in the strait. She is in the operating area from which the strait is accessible within acceptable transit time, and from which her air wing's range covers the approaches that matter. This is the positioning that forward deployment is designed for. Not permanent presence at the flashpoint, but presence close enough to matter quickly. The Fujian, as of the most recent intelligence update at 6 a.m. this morning, is 280 nautical miles to the northwest, conducting flight operations in the Western Pacific in what Chinese state media has described as a scheduled training exercise. 2 carrier strike groups in the same ocean, the same general area of the Western Pacific, neither within direct engagement range. Both visible to each other's intelligence architecture. Both aware that the other is there. The time is 9:44. The E-2D Advanced Hawkeye from Reagan's air wing is orbiting at altitude northeast of the carrier's position, maintaining the air picture that the carrier strike group's command requires. The APY-9 radar is painting the standard Western Pacific picture: commercial aviation at altitude, military flights in the known operating areas, and, at the edge of the E-2D's detection range to the northwest, the air contacts associated with the Fujian's current flight operations. Multiple contacts at medium altitude, bearing profiles consistent with aircraft entering and departing the flight pattern of a carrier conducting operations. The E-2D crew notes them. They update the picture. They transmit to Reagan. On the Fujian, the morning flight cycle is in its 2nd event. The EMALS catapults are cycling. J-15B fighters are launching. Z-18 anti-submarine helicopters are airborne. The Airboss equivalent is managing a flight deck operation that is, by the internal standards of the Fujian program, proceeding well. The EMALS system has been reliable through the current training period. The aircrew are building the experience that their instructors have been working toward, and the launch tempo has reached a rate that is operationally meaningful rather than just demonstrative. This is the plan doing what carrier programs have to do, accumulating repetitions. The Fujian's crew knows they are being watched. They have known they were being watched since before they left port. They are doing the training anyway because the training is the only way to build what training builds, and being watched is the price of operating in international waters in a contested environment. What neither side is doing, and what neither side will do, is anything that violates the framework. The framework is the informal operational understanding that has governed carrier-to-carrier proximity in this part of the Pacific since approximately 2016. Neither side approaches within 100 nautical miles without notification. Neither side conducts flight operations that bring aircraft within 50 nautical miles of the other carrier without a flight safety notification, and both sides maintain the specific professional distance that prevents the kind of incident that neither government wants, but that the domestic political dynamics of both countries make periodically attractive as theater. The framework is not signed. It is not published. It is understood, maintained at the operational level by people who have been around long enough to know what happens when the framework breaks down, and it has held for 8 years without a significant incident. At 9:44, the framework is about to experience its most serious test since it was established. At 9:44, USS Ronald Reagan's Tactical Action Officer receives a report from the E-2D. The two J-15B aircraft, currently airborne from the Fujian, have altered course and are tracking southeast. The new course, if maintained, takes them toward Reagan's operating area. Not toward Reagan directly, the track is offset to the south, but toward the 50 nautical mile flight safety boundary at a speed that will bring them to that boundary in approximately 22 minutes. The flight safety notification procedure requires that the plan provide a notification to the U.S. Navy's Pacific Fleet Watch before aircraft operate within 50 nautical miles of USS Ronald Reagan. No notification has been received. The Tactical Action Officer transmits to the Pacific Fleet Watch officer at 0945. He notes the J-15B track, the estimated time to the 50-mile boundary, and the absence of a notification. The Pacific Fleet Watch officer notes it. He transmits to the military-to-military deconfliction channel that exists for exactly this kind of situation. The deconfliction channel is the operational layer beneath the framework, the actual phone line between actual watch officers that handles the moment when the framework's unwritten understanding requires a written communication to prevent a misunderstanding from becoming an incident. The deconfliction channel call is made at 9:47. The plan duty officer at Zhoushan receives the call. He is professional. He acknowledges the J-15B track and the 50-mile boundary concern. He states that he will verify the aircraft's intentions with the Fujian's operations center. He will call back within 5 minutes. 5 minutes at the J-15B's current speed is 9 nautical miles. The J-15Bs will be at 63 nautical miles from Reagan's position when the 5-minute callback is due. The watch officer notes the geometry. He does not find it comfortable. This is the vulnerability window. Not a weapon, not a missile, not a maintenance cycle or a weather event. The vulnerability window is 22 minutes and a phone call and the specific uncertainty of whether the J-15Bs are on a training track that happens to point toward the 50-mile boundary, or whether something else is happening that the framework's informal understanding cannot contain. The Fujian strike group has YJ-12 anti-ship missiles with a range of approximately 400 kilometers. The J-15B's combat radius at this load factor is approximately 1,000 kilometers. Neither of these numbers is being invoked tonight. Neither of them needs to be invoked for the Tactical Action Officer to note them when he is watching 2 J-15Bs on a southeast track and waiting for a callback. The commanding officer of USS Ronald Reagan is on the bridge. He has been briefed. He is reviewing the E-2D picture. He is also reviewing the 2 FA-18Fs that are currently on combat air patrol approximately 80 nautical miles northeast of Reagan's position, and the 2 additional FA-18Fs that are in the Alert 5 configuration on the flight deck, and the full tactical picture that the Spy-1D is providing on every contact within its range. He is not alarmed. He is attentive, which is the professional condition that flag officers and commanding officers maintain when the tactical picture includes an ambiguity that could go in a direction that requires rapid response. The callback arrives at 9:52. The planned duty officer is professional. His information: the two J-15Bs are conducting a navigation training flight. The crew of the Fujian's Flight Operations Center was unaware that the track took the aircraft toward the 50-mile boundary. The aircraft have been redirected. The new course takes them north, away from Reagan's operating area. A flight safety notification has been submitted retroactively for the portion of the track that came within notification parameters. The duty officer apologizes for the procedural gap. The Pacific Fleet Watch officer acknowledges. The framework has held. The J-15Bs are now on a northbound track. At 9:52:41, the E-2D confirms the J-15Bs have turned north. They are now at 71 nautical miles from Reagan's position, tracking northwest, consistent with a return to the Fujian's pattern. The tactical action officer notes the turn in the contact log. He notes the deconfliction call outcome. He notes that the closest point of approach of the J-15Bs to Reagan's position was 68 nautical miles, which is inside the 100 nautical mile notification zone, but outside the 50 nautical mile boundary. The framework applies to flights within 50 miles. The J-15Bs turned at 68. The geometry was close. The callback was timely, barely. The framework held barely. Now let us talk about what the E-2D has been collecting on the Fujian's flight operations for the past 1 hour and 43 minutes. Because the intelligence dimension of two carrier strike groups operating in the same ocean in the Western Pacific is not contained in the framework negotiation that just resolved. It is contained in what the APY-9 radar has been building since 7:01 this morning. The APY-9 radar's ability to track aircraft at extended range makes the E-2D the most capable airborne surveillance platform in the Pacific. At its operating altitude, the APY-9 can track the Fujian's flight pattern from ranges where the information being collected is, from the PLAN's perspective, not available to American sensors. This is not correct. The information is available to American sensors specifically because the E-2D is in the right position, at the right altitude, and because the APY-9's track quality at this range on the Fujian's flight operations is sufficient to characterize the launch tempo, the aircraft types, the approach and departure patterns, and with the specific analysis that the E-2D crew has been conducting for 1 hour and 43 minutes. The EMALS system's performance indicators. The EMALS performance indicators deserve explanation because they are the most operationally significant element of the E-2D's collection this morning. An electromagnetic catapult system produces a specific electromagnetic emission signature when it energizes for a launch. The emission signature is brief. The energization cycle for a single launch is approximately 4 to 6 seconds, but it is detectable by the right sensor at the right altitude. The E-2D's AN/ALQ217 electronic support measure system is the right sensor. At altitude, looking northwest toward the Fujian's position, the ALQ217 has been detecting EMALS energization signatures since 7:01. The frequency, the energization pattern, the duration, and the power level of the EMALS signature. All are being collected with the precision of a system that was designed specifically to collect on airborne electronic emitters, but finds this morning that the Fujian's deck is visible from altitude and the EMALS emissions are within the collection envelope. The EMALS emission data is operationally significant because the Fujian's EMALS system is the first operational carrier electromagnetic catapult outside the United States, and the U.S. Navy's understanding of how the plan implemented this technology. The specific engineering choices that produced the Fujian's EMALS as opposed to the Ford class's EMALS, the power levels, the energization cycle duration, and what the differences imply about the system's design margin and capability, is a collection priority that has been in the Pacific Fleet's intelligence requirements list since 2022. This morning's E-2D collection is the first close-range, high-fidelity EMALS emission data from the Fujian in operational conditions. EMALS energization on the Fujian mark. The E-2D's electronic warfare officer reports at 0954, 12 seconds after the J-15B framework incident resolved. That's the 14th launch event this morning. Average cycle time between launches, 4 minutes 22 seconds. She marks the cycle time. The cycle time tells analysts the Fujian's launch tempo under current operational conditions. The Ford class can sustain a launch every 45 seconds with all 4 catapults cycling. The Fujian has 2 catapults. 4 minutes 22 seconds per launch is not the Ford class's tempo. It is the Fujian's current tempo. The difference between the two is meaningful operationally. It affects how many aircraft the Fujian can put airborne in a given time window, and the existing assessment of the Fujian's launch tempo had been built from satellite imagery and analysis of publicly released footage, neither of which provides the cycle time precision of a direct electronic emissions measurement. The energization duration is averaging 5.1 seconds, the EW officer adds. That's slightly longer than the Ford class baseline. Could indicate a different power curve, possibly a more conservative energization profile to reduce stress on the system during the training period. She marks the duration. The duration comparison to the Ford class baseline is analytically interesting. If the Fujian's EMALS is using a more conservative energization profile, it may be operating at a reduced power setting that limits the maximum aircraft weight it can launch. Or it may simply be a different system design. The analysis will require more data and more time than the current mission allows. The observation is law. The analysts will decide what it means. The J-15B flight track and the deconfliction call have consumed the tactical attention since 0944. The collection has been running in the background throughout, and the E-2D's record of the Fujian's morning operations is building toward a comprehensive picture of what the Fujian can do when she is doing it for real, rather than for a commissioning ceremony. 14 launch events in 1 hour and 43 minutes. Average cycle time, 4 minutes, 22 seconds. Average EMALS energization duration, 5.1 seconds. Aircraft types observed, J-15B in 2 configurations, what appears to be an air superiority configuration, and what the identification crew classifies as a maritime strike configuration, based on the aircraft's approach profile and the external observable differences in weapons loadout. Z-18, ASW helicopters, 3 sorties. KJ-600 airborne, early warning aircraft, 1 sortie, first confirmed operational observation of this type from a Fujian class deployment. The KJ-600 observation deserves specific note. The KJ-600 is the plan's carrier-based airborne early warning aircraft, the equivalent of the U.S. Navy's E-2D, and its operational debut from the Fujian represents a capability threshold that the existing plan carrier assessment had projected but not confirmed. An operational carrier-based AEW aircraft gives the Fujian a force multiplication capability that the earlier Liaoning and Shandong carriers, with their ski jump ramps rather than catapults, could not achieve. The KJ-600 is too heavy to launch from a ski jump at operational weight. The Fujian's EMALS changes this. The KJ-600's first confirmed operational appearance from the Fujian this morning is a collection event that the Pacific Fleet's intelligence requirements list specifically called for at Priority 1. KJ-600 is airborne, bearing 270, altitude 18,000 feet, track northwest. The E-2D's identification crew reports at 10:14. This is the first confirmed operational sortie from a Fujian deployment. Recording all emissions, the KJ-600's own radar is an AEW system. It is looking for surface and air contacts in its operating area. The APY-9 on the E-2D is looking at the KJ-600. The KJ-600's emissions, its radar frequency, scan rate, waveform, and the specific characteristics of a system that was designed to be the plan's answer to the E-2D are being collected by the E-2D's ALQ-217 from the moment the aircraft is airborne. The KJ-600's radar characteristics will go into the intelligence library alongside the EMALS data and the launch tempo data and the aircraft configuration data. This is a morning of firsts that the Pacific Fleet's intelligence programs have been specifically organized to capture. The E-2D crew is running a careful balance between maintaining the surveillance collection and managing the deconfliction framework situation that dominated the previous 20 minutes. Both tasks are being done. The collection has not paused during the framework negotiation. The tactical picture has not been neglected during the collection. This is what a trained E-2D crew does in a complex environment. Everything simultaneously, at the standard that the mission requires. At 10:44, the E-2D is approaching its fuel state limit for the extended surveillance tasking. The aircraft will need to return for recovery, refueling, and crew change before the next surveillance cycle. The collection period for this morning's mission is drawing to its end. The intelligence officer aboard the E-2D is finalizing the collection summary that will be transmitted before recovery. The summary covers 14 EMALS launch events with cycle times and energization durations, J-15B configuration analysis, Z-18 sortie documentation, KJ-600 first confirmed operational deployment from Fujian, EMALS emission frequency and power level characterization, and the J-15B track framework incident and its resolution. The summary does not include everything. The full collection, the raw track data, the emission recordings, the contact histories, is in the digital record that will be downloaded after recovery. The summary is the overview. The record is the substance. The summary is transmitted at 10:47, 3 minutes before the E-2D begins its recovery approach. It goes to USS Ronald Reagan, to Pacific Fleet, to the Pacific Command J-2 Intelligence Directorate, to the Naval Air Systems Command's Carrier Aviation Intelligence Program, and to the Office of Naval Intelligence's Plan Carrier Program. The KJ-600 observation goes to a priority distribution list that also includes the defense intelligence agencies of Japan, South Korea, and Australia, all of whom have been tracking the Fujian's operational capability development, and all of whom have specific intelligence requirements tied to the KJ-600's operational debut. The responding message from the Office of Naval Intelligence arrives at 11:23. It is 2 sentences. The first sentence acknowledges receipt of the collection. The second sentence says, "The KJ-600 data is a fill against priority. 1 intelligence requirement. Please transmit full emission recordings upon landing." The full emission recordings are transmitted at 13:11 after the E-2D has recovered, been refueled, and had its recording systems downloaded. The transmission is 4.7 gigabytes. This is not a number that usually appears in this series, but in this context, it is operationally meaningful. 4.7 gigabytes is the size of a collection record that covers the KJ-600's radar emissions across its entire airborne period, from first detection to recovery. It is more data on the KJ-600's operational characteristics than the intelligence community has collected from all other sources combined. Now let us discuss what Chinese state media said happened, because the Chinese state media approach to carrier operations is a specific and interesting genre. Chinese state media, specifically CCTV and the Global Times, reported the Fujian's exercise with the specific enthusiasm that the PLAN's Information Operations Program reserves for carrier aviation milestones. The reporting described the exercise as demonstrating the Fujian's advanced operational capabilities, highlighted the EMALS system's performance, and included footage of J-15B launches that had been cleared by the PLAN's public affairs apparatus. The footage is real. The launches are real. The reporting is accurate in the sense that the Fujian is conducting real flight operations and the system is performing. What the reporting did not include: the J-15B track toward Reagan's operating area, the deconfliction call at 09:47, and the 5 minutes of uncertainty that produced a professional call to reverse course. The reporting did not include the E-2D at altitude collecting EMALS emission signatures. The reporting did not include the KJ-600's 4.7 gigabyte debut in the ONI's priority collection database. The reporting described a training exercise. The training exercise occurred. The E-2D's observation of that exercise from altitude is not in the Chinese media's version of what happened this morning, because the Chinese media's version of what happened was prepared by people who did not know the E-2D was there. The E-2D was there. It is always there. This is the operational point of the carrier airborne early warning mission. To be at altitude, to see what is happening at extended range, and to see it in sufficient detail that the intelligence picture that drives operational decisions is current, accurate, and built on direct observation, rather than inference. The Fujian is a real ship doing real things. The E-2D is a real aircraft, collecting real data on those real things. Both statements were true this morning. One of them produced 4.7 gigabytes. Aboard USS Ronald Reagan, the afternoon flight cycle is underway. The J-15Bs from the Fujian are back in their pattern, northwest, conducting their training. The framework has held. The Deconfliction channel is quiet. The KJ-600 data is in 4 inboxes, and the full emission file is transmitting to ONI. The relief: E-2D has launched for the afternoon surveillance cycle and is at altitude, APY-9, painting the Western Pacific picture, looking northwest. The air boss is cycling his flight deck. The afternoon events are launching and recovering on schedule. The coffee in his station is from the pot made at 12 o'clock, which, at 14:30, is in the condition that reflects 2.5 hours of warming plate existence, which is to say, it is not good. He drinks it. The Fujian is 280 miles northwest, doing the training that builds the operational experience that closes the gap. The E-2D is at altitude watching. The picture is current. The collection is running. The pot that needs to be replaced has not been replaced because the air boss has been busy, and coffee is not the most important thing happening right now. It will be replaced at the next natural pause. There are no natural pauses on a carrier flight deck. The coffee waits. Bye for now.